Let me go ahead and share with you my screen, the course syllabus. The first part of this course syllabus is the information on how to contact me. So use my Gmail account, or better yet, use the settings in Canvas to do that. Okay, so let me get a pen here. Okay, so that's my email account on this syllabus, and you guys can certainly type that into your browser, or better yet, when you're in Canvas, there's an email system there that you guys can use. The lab manual is available online as well in Canvas, as well as if you want a hard copy, you can contact Miramar Copy, and they will mail you one for pretty inexpensive. In fact, it might be even cheaper than printing it out and making copies of your own. Save you paper and printer material. The lab kit will be from KLM Bioscientifics. And if you go to this website right here, what you will see is it'll give you information in terms of ordering, and they could even mail it to you. They're actually a physical site in Claremont Mesa, and maybe you can go and pick it up if they'll allow you to do that. It's about $125. I brought down the price from about $150, $160 over the summer to about $125. We're trying to supplement some of the equipment that you guys will need through our department, and that's why what you will find in the chemical kits that you will receive once you come to Miramar to pick it up is a scale, because that keeps the cost down, as well as some other material. The chemical supplies, you guys need to pick it up at Miramar College. We're not going to mail it. That means you have to be physically here in San Diego to pick it up, okay? And that particular chemical supplies has chemicals that you guys will be using in for this class, and as well as other material that you will need for the experiment. And I'll go over that when we get to that portion of today's discussion. I'll show you what scales you guys will be using and how to use it correctly, okay? Then the other material that you will need, and this is required for safety because you guys are not taking it at Miramar College. You definitely need safety goggles, okay? So make sure you purchase safety goggles. Walmart, Harbor Freight, Target, they'll have these. You definitely need a calculator because you guys are going to be doing calculations, and you probably need that for your lecture course as well. Make sure you get a first aid kit. Yeah, you might not need it, and hopefully you never do in this class. It never hurts to have one in your home anyway. You do need a fire extinguisher because we will be working with flames. And if you live in an apartment and there's fire extinguisher available, fine. If not, try and get one. They're not that expensive, but that's for safety reasons. You never know when something happens, and it doesn't hurt to have one in your house, okay? Especially since we're in the fire season. And then you guys can also get a composition notebook, and I'll talk to you about that, in order to write detailed notes if you want. And if you complete those, it's not required, by the way, but if you complete the lab notebook and you take pictures of your notes, and it has to be in the correct format, then you get some bonus points for each of the experiments in which you complete that, okay? And I'll give you an explanation on how that's done. Student learning outcomes, you guys need to learn how to use proper procedure for lab safety, how to measure, how to take measurements with the proper measuring device, how to dispose of chemical waste and chemical reagents. Okay, these are what hopefully you guys will learn in this course. There's a course description, of course, and it's basically to supplement the Chemistry 100 lecture that you guys are taking. And this class is for the allied health field. If you're taking this class as a GE general elective, then fine, you can do that, and it certainly satisfies that. But really, this class is geared for the allied health majors, especially those in nursing. So this is just a description about each of the experiment. You guys have about 8 experiments and 4 exercise. They all weigh the same rather than having the exercise. These are paper labs, weigh less. I just decided to make it all weigh the same. It's easy in terms of grading and logistics in terms of tallying up your points. These are the lab tech. The lab tech that is especially useful for us is this last person. His name is not Dam Lee anymore. He's Calvin Lee, and that's his phone number. So if you need help, if you need to change the time in which to pick up supplies, he's the person to talk to. I put in the announcement page when to pick up supplies. That'll be Thursday, August 27th, and Monday, August 31st. And that's because we have limited time to be on campus. We are still in the remote teaching. That's because we have to practice distance spacing in terms of contacts with other folks. And so he has a specific way in which to distribute the chemical. You should have seen that in the announcement page, but he also has a limited amount of time to be available to distribute this. So if you need other times, then let me know. I'll pass on the information or just let him know directly, okay? And we could probably work out something, but those are the 2 specific times that he will be available to distribute the chemicals for you, okay? In terms of the schedule, this is the schedule. This week, you guys are just going to be doing safety, and that's not really due until you guys receive your chemicals. And that's because I want to make sure that everybody has their chemicals in hand and everybody has their lab equipment in hand and the safety material. So part of your lab safety is not only answering the questions in Canvas, but also taking a photo with yourself in the background with the chemicals that you received from Miramar, the lab kit that you got from KLM, and the safety equipment. That's a requirement. If you can't do that, then there's no guarantee that you actually have the material to do the labs, and then you can't take this class, okay? I know that some of you are actually not in San Diego. I don't know how you guys are going to get the chemicals because we're not going to be shipping it. But if you're not in San Diego, it makes it very difficult. Probably best to take another course in which you do this lab via video and not actually hands-on. So keep that in mind. So this is the schedule for the semester. First week is just going over the safety. Look at that on your own, even though you don't have to complete it until you have everything. And it's not due until, I believe, September 6th. You should take a look at that. Next week, and you can even work it out this week if you want. You have your first exercise in this course. It's math basics and dimensional analysis. Now, we haven't covered that yet in lecture, but you can open that up and try it because there are no time limits in any of these things, just a deadline when to submit it. So please keep that in mind, that when you do open these experiments or these activities, you don't have a set amount of time to complete it, but you do have a deadline to submit it, okay? So what I do is in Canvas, I release this about a couple of weeks ahead of time, and you guys will have access to it, so you can always work ahead. So if you take a look at this schedule, what you will see is that first couple of weeks, really you don't need the lab equipment, you don't need the lab supplies. It's just administrative stuff, and then making sure you know how to do the math that's required in this class. And then starting on the week of August 31st, but not due till that weekend, is experiment number 1, the penny lab. In that particular experiment, you will need the scale. Scale looks like this. You guys will need to just make sure that I have this. Okay. You guys will be able to use the scale to weigh the pennies. So let me give you a warning ahead of time. We have a coinage problem in this country, and so we don't have a lot of coins released out there, but you can still get coins from the bank. Make an appointment if you don't have pennies lying around to go to the bank and get at least $10 worth of pennies. And the reason why you need to do that is because you need to hunt for pennies that are pre-1980. They still are out there, but you need to find pennies that are pre-1980. And so if you get a whole stack of pennies, you can sort this out. You need to separate the pennies like from decade 1960s to 1970s, 1970s to 1980s, 1980s to 1990s, and so on. And if you don't have those pennies with you, then you can't do the lab. So within the next 2 weeks, you'll get some pennies, okay, or hunt some pennies in your house. Then for the next 2 weeks, we have 2 experiments, 3 experiments, 4 experiments that you actually are working on. And then if you look in the syllabus, whatever is highlighted in red are paper labs. These are no equipment required, no safety goggles required. You guys are just working on these exercises. So this is a schedule. You guys have a midterm that's scheduled on October 19th. There's 75 points. And then there's also a lab practical that goes on with that. And then we continue with the second half of the semester. Counting by weighing via the moles, chemical reactions, gas law, that's a simulation lab. You don't need any equipment for that. You guys are going to discover the gas law and the gas law constant. Concentration of a salt solution, we have Thanksgiving break. Then we have a titration, and then you guys have your last week in which you have your final exam and the lab practical. Both the midterm and your final exam are timed. You guys will have like maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours to complete it. And your lab practical, you guys will have about 30 minutes to complete it. Yeah, lab practical is supposed to be an event, an activity in which you go to lab, carry out some measurements. In this particular case, you guys can't be in lab, and we don't have a way of controlling what measurements you guys will take. So what you will do is just look at some of the visual pictures, and then using the knowledge that you have, provide a value of that measurement. Like for example, we will show you a graduated cylinder filled with water, and you need to tell me what the volume of that water is. Or we'll give you a thermometer, and the thermometer has a certain reading. You need to give the reading of that thermometer. And it's not enough to just give me a number. You have to give me the number to the correct precision of that measuring device with the correct units. So that's your lab practical, okay? Moving along here, what you will see is that you have some holidays. You've got Labor Day coming up on the 7th. This is an online class, so these holidays really don't affect you except for Thanksgiving break, because you have the flexibility to do the experiment at any time, but before the deadline. So you could work ahead, you could work last minute, but in order to get graded for that particular experiment, for that particular assessment, you need to complete it and submit it within the deadline. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is how you guys are going to be graded. There are 9 experiments and 4 activities. They're both were 50 points. Okay, so that's a total of 13. You get to drop 1. I'll find the lowest one that you have. If you miss one, that's the one that's dropped. So it doesn't have to be all experiments. It could be an activity that you miss, or it could be one of the experiments that you just didn't get a good grade on. But one of them will be dropped. So that leaves 8. 8 times 50, that'll be 600 points. Okay. I sorry, not 8, 12, because there will be 9 plus 4 is 13, minus 1 is 12, 12 times 50 is 600 points. So that's the breakdown. You got a safety, syllabus, and exam. Remember, the exam is your midterm and your final. That's a total of 275 points. You got your participation and your technique. And your technique, by the way, is making sure that you turn things in a timely manner, that your photos, because you have to take photos when you do this experiment, are clear and has good resolution and have proper labels. Um, so that's your lab technique. The bulk of your lab technique is turning in your chemical waste at the end. Okay, if you do not turn in your chemical waste at the end of the semester, you don't get any lab techniques points, and your transcript will be held back. When you guys do an experiment and you have chemicals that you've used, you need to get a plastic bottle, plastic water bottle that's disposable, and you're going to pour it in there and then just keep it shut. Don't have any of your family or roommate come in contact with any of the chemicals that you are being issued. Only you have authorization to use that. Okay, they're not in the class. I had a student last semester who told me that her mother got rid of her chemicals. I don't know why. I think it was not honest in terms of that. She was trying to get out of that last experiment, but no one, you should clearly label it and keep it away from others, because even though the chemicals are not toxic in quantities, it can. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Uh, in terms of the lab policies, you guys can read this. This is a remote learning environment. You need to practice safety. Safety is our utmost concern, but we're not there to look over your shoulder. So you have to use common sense. You have to wear your safety goggles. You have to wear your protective, personal protective equipment. Use nitrile gloves. Some people are allergic to latex, so nitrile is the probably the most common gloves. You can buy those at Walmart, and these days with the pandemic going around, you might already have some gloves, okay, for your protection. So when you handle the chemicals in this class, make sure you wear your gloves, okay? Um, moving along here, okay, the, this is just an overview of what this course is about. You guys have lab assignments. We'll talk more about that shortly here. You guys need to get your equipment from KLM Bioscientific, and then you guys also need to get your chemicals from Miramar College. On the day that it's scheduled, you guys will drive to the parking lot next to the math building. Okay, you need to come through I guess the north side of the campus. Okay, where the administrative building is, where the public safety is. That's where the fire academy is found. Okay, go through there, hang a left towards the building structure, and then go into that parking lot. Calvin will be there in his white lab coat and his mask to issue out the chemicals. What you need to do, of course, is have a sign on your dashboard of who you are and the CRN. That way he can keep record of who picked up the chemicals. Okay, so these are things that are required to complete this class. The optional notebook is so that you can document your work in an organized fashion. And then when you guys are taking your midterm or your final, you can certainly have everything condensed here, because even though you guys are submitting your work on Canvas, it's going to be everywhere in terms of the different pages on Canvas. Hopefully you have a copy with yourself, but if you can organize it in the lab manual, it's much more easier to navigate around. You just see, there's some questions on the chat box. Let me just go through this real quick. Is there a fee for the chemical supplies? No, there is no fee. It's free. okay? But if you don't return the waste and the scales at the end, we will charge you a fee, okay? So there are no fees, except, of course, you have to pay for the equipment through KLM because um, we have a contract with them, and that's not free, okay? Um, the kits you do have to buy. It's about $125. Um, can someone else pick it up for you? Just make sure that when you take the safety quiz, it's you, okay? Because if it's not you, then you're not the person who's doing the labs. It has to be the person enrolled in the class to do that, okay? And you need to show your ID, your college ID in the safety quiz as well, so I know what you look like. Um, did we say $10 worth of nine? No, just $10 worth of pennies, and then you guys will need to hunt within that $10. Remember, there's about 100 pennies, so that'll give you about 1,000 pennies. And within 1,000 pennies, statistics shows that you should find a few pennies that are before 1980. And if you go penny hunting, some of those pennies are actually worth more. In fact, all pennies are worth more than a penny these days because the copper in the pennies is pretty expensive. Um, let's see. So can we use plastic water bottles to store? Yeah, use plastic water bottles, exactly. Like the Avians or something else that you can cap and seal. And every time you want to pour chemicals in, you just uncap it and pour the chemical waste. And then just make sure it's labeled, okay? Because it'll look like Kool-Aid or some sort of beverage because it's going to be dark with weird colors depending on the chemicals in there. Make sure it's labeled, put a skull and crossbones so that people know not to mess with it. It's got to be properly labeled. Do we need to purchase the scales? No, you don't need to purchase the scale. The scale says complement of Miramar College. Those scales in the past has been as much as $25. We found some that are pretty inexpensive, and we are giving it to you free to use, not free to keep. Okay, free to use. You need to return it at the end of the semester. Um, no, the date's been changed. Okay, it's not 9/3 and 9/4 anymore, and the reason why is I asked the lab tech to make it available the second week, next week on the 27th, um, because you guys' first experiment starts the week after. You guys need the scale to weigh the pennies, okay? If you don't have that, you don't have the equipment, then you can't weigh the pennies. If you pick it up Monday, you still have that whole week to carry out the experiment. Your first experiment requires you guys to have a petri dish, scale, and some other measuring device. So you need it before 9/3. If you pick it up on 9/3, then that's the same week in which that experiment is to be conducted. Let me see. Yeah, KLM will mail you the packet. Plastic face shield or eye shield or need, yeah, you need actual goggles. Face shield, if you have a face shield that covers all the way down, I guess that would be okay. But you need to show that you're practicing safety. Again, safety is the most important thing in this class, and there's always like a safety information in each of the experiments, and you guys need to illustrate that you are practicing safe lab techniques. Um, the safety quiz is not due this Sunday. I told you already it's not due till September 6th, and the reason why is because you will need to take a picture of yourself with the chemical supplies and your equipment in you in the background, those things in the foreground. And if you don't have that, then your safety quiz is not complete. It won't be graded. I need to see that you actually have everything available to carry out this course. Okay. So I think that pretty much is it. And let me go ahead and continue on with the syllabus. The rest of the information that you see here is miscellaneous information. I talked to you about making sure that, well, actually, I forgot. Let me go through the grading evaluation, which I sort of discussed already. Okay, but here it is in terms of the breakdown. 8 times 50, maybe you drop an experiment. So from the 9, we pick up 8. That's 400 points. The activity, 4 times 50. If it so happens that your activity is the lowest, then I'll use all 9 experiments and 3 of your best activities or exercises. Anyway, the 2 combined should add up to 600 points. The quizzes are here, sort of breaks it down. The lab practicals here sort of breaks it down. And then in terms of the lab techniques and everything, it's sort of described here. This over here to the right shows you the breakdown in terms of what grade you will receive if you complete this. If you've got 90% or better at the end of the semester, that's a guaranteed A. Sometimes I drop my grading so that if you have 890 points or 89%, sometimes I make that the cutoff. It all depends on the strength of the class, okay? By the way, if you add up all the points of these things that I show you here, that adds up to 1,000. I like 1,000-point system because it's a nice clean number so that when I tally up all the points at the end of the semester, I know where you stand. I don't have to do any complicated math. Like 880 divided by 1,000 is 88%. Okay, so anyway, that's take a look at that. That's how you guys are going to be graded. That's the where you're going to find points to be had in this class. What's not shown here, of course, is the fact that if you do the lab notebook and you do that in a timely manner and it's in the format that I'm asking, then you get some bonus points. Not a lot, maybe at most 4 points. But hey, 4 points, if it's accumulated over the course of the semester, can add up to close to 40 points, okay? So the next information here are just miscellaneous information about picking up your supplies, about using the calculator, about making sure that you are honest in this class. In fact, most of this information is about plagiarism and carrying out the experiment on your own. And you can't use your classmate photo. I had that this summer where students were just using each other photo to submit. You actually have to do the experiment, okay? You guys aren't working with lab partners here. You guys all need your equipment, but you can collaborate. And again, collaboration means you talk about the experimental results, you talk about your findings, you talk about what you think is happening, but when it comes to answering the questions, you have to own up to it. It has to be through your own words. It's got to be through your own handwriting. If, and this happens a lot, I'm reading your reports and deja vu happens to struck me because I'm thinking I've read this before, or I've seen this setup before and it's the wrong setup, then I can easily hunt back through the other papers. And if I find out that you guys are cheating or dishonest, then I'm going to call you out on it, okay? And that's not good. If you are in this class, you know that there's a lot of work to be done. If you try and take corners and try and not do an experiment but pass off some other person's work as your own, then you're not going to be very successful. So please, please, please do time management, work, plan ahead, and then complete the experiment in a timely manner. And make sure that you are able to answer those questions in your own words and in your own handwriting. It's okay to talk to another classmate about what do you think about this or what do you think about that, but you better be owning up to the answers and the work that you submit. Otherwise, if it's not your work, it's plagiarism, it's dishonesty, and you will get a 0 for that assignment. Okay, so that's what I have here in terms of these miscellaneous information. Okay, And the thing that I want to point out especially is the academic honesty policy. Make sure you read that. You guys will have a syllabus quiz in week 3, and a lot of it will be on safety, okay? And part of that safety is to make sure that you know the difference between collaboration and dishonesty. So make sure you read this particular point so you know what is allowed and what is cheating. Because if you are cheating or dishonest, then you're not going to have a very successful time in this course. So that's basically it. This right here is just the notebook. Please read that. It's not required. Again, it's not required. You complete everything through the lab data sheet in the lab manual. But if you want some extra points, and it's also to prepare you. If you're going to be in the allied health field, if you're going to be a nurse, then you have to keep documents. You have to record documents. You have to record what you see. So it's a good way of preparing yourself for that skill that you guys are going to be practicing in the future. I used to have a lab notebook in this course when I first taught it. It was pretty successful. You guys learned how to write reports and everything, but it was also tedious. Okay, so that's why it's a requirement. It's an option here. The most important thing is to make sure you complete the data sheet and answer the pre-lab and post-lab questions for each experiment. So take a look at that. The next thing at the bottom of this syllabus is the chemicals that you guys will need per experiment, as well as the matrix of what equipment to be using per experiment, and then the supplies, glasswares that you will receive from KLM Bioscientific. Okay, everything here should be available. Make sure you understand the difference between a watch glass and an evaporating dish. This is an evaporating dish. Okay, so everything here will be in the supplies that you get from KLM Bioscientific. In fact, this right here at the very top, that's the description that they gave me for you guys to double check. Don't call them up and ask them about what supplies are in the kit. It's right here, okay? They're already inundated with work because they have to supply a lot, not only our class, but across the county, because everyone's doing remote teaching. So please don't call them up. Call them up if you need to order, but don't ask them for the inventory. It's right here in the course syllabus. So let me go ahead and get out of this. Okay, and let's see, and then share with you Canvas and my webpage, and then just show you where the lab manual is found. In terms of my webpage, you will find it here. Let me go back. So that's what you would see. To enter this class, you need to click enter here, or this colon right here. Okay, here you will see in my webpage the different experiments on the left menu. And if you click on each one, what should happen is the experiment should load based on that. But really, you want to access these experiments if you're on my webpage through this main page right here. Okay, this main page is a table of content of what we have, and Canvas links to this page. So in terms of the, for example, if you guys want to see the equipment, just click on that and you get a pop-up of the equipment that you guys will have in this course. Let's go back. If you guys want to see the safety quiz, it looks like that. Just scroll down. This is safety information. Now the safety quiz that you guys will be answering, or this is safety information, but the safety quiz that you guys will be answering will be based on this, as well as the movie that you guys are watching. Okay, let me go back. In terms of math basics and dimensional analysis, this is the activity that you guys will be working on. So you have access to it here. Read the information in the beginning, and then if you scroll down, these are the exercises that you guys are going to be completing. And you guys are actually going to be completing this through Canvas. Use this as a scratch paper or scratch work so that when you go into Canvas, you can answer these questions on Canvas, because each one will be a question in Canvas. Okay. Again, just so that you know what is in this page. If you want to take a look at what the experiment about separation of ternary mixture is, it's right here. So your whole lab manual is actually found on my webpage. And if you just go to this page right here, you can download each individual experiment as you encounter it. And in fact, Canvas will link to these pages. So that's where you will find the experiment. If you want to look at your lab manual is not actually here. This is the table of contents of the experiment. The other useful information is the Google Drive. In the Google Drive, you will find the laboratory manual right here and other information that I might put up. Also, in my lab page, you should go to these YouTube videos. And the reason why I refer you to this is because when I carry these experiments really haven't changed since I first introduced it when I developed this course. And these experiments are actually the same experiments we do at Miramar College. When you guys are doing the penny lab, we do that at Miramar College. When you do separation of ternary mixture, we do this at Miramar College. So since I developed the curriculum for Chem 100 at Miramar College, I decided to use the same experiments that we use on campus. So what you have here are my pre-lab discussion at Miramar College for each of the experiments. So when you need information about the penny lab, for example, then click here and you will see my, well, not that. Okay, click here and you'll see my pre-lab talk. Yeah, I looked younger back then. But you see my pre-lab talk on the penny experiment. Okay, so you have a lot of resources in terms of these experiments. And the experiments haven't changed, the numbers have changed, the chemicals may change a little bit, but it's still basically the same. I'm gonna shut this guy down because you guys can watch him at your leisure, okay? So again, that's the available resources that you guys can use, okay? So that's all in my webpage. Now let's go to Canvas. Here in Canvas, what you will see, of course, is the splash page. And in the splash page, you'll see the announcement as well as the home page that you have. Announcement, the syllabus, My Lab and Mastering. That's actually for lecture. Make sure this is the wrong course. Let me get to the right course. Here we go. This is the lab. Okay. So this is the announcement as well as my homepage right here. Click on the announcement. It'll show you the announcement list that I've put for you guys. It's here. If you click on the syllabus, you guys can, it's also linked to my web page. That's this. You guys want to read this thoroughly for the syllabus quiz that's coming up on the 3rd week. You really want to hang out in the module page. Now, I had a little issue at the beginning of the week because things that I set up were not coming out quite right. So I had to work furiously to get this thing straight. So what you will see here, initially, like yesterday, you only saw the course information right here and the first week. And as I start to make sure everything's working, I will put on the module page the weekly schedule on a chronological fashion. Okay, so that's what you see right here. You see these green circles? When these green circles, because what you're doing is you're seeing the instructor view. When these circles are green, it means that you have access to them. When they are not green, they're closed and you don't see them in your Canvas page. So I haven't released these yet, but I will do so probably in the next week or so. But don't worry about it, because this syllabus quiz you guys won't be doing until the third week, and the first experiment you guys won't be doing until third week. But I will be releasing this sometime next week when I can see that it's correctly, the dates are correct, and that the questions are finely tuned for the fact that it's not summer anymore. Okay, but you want to just, this is pretty much where you would hang out for this class, is this module page. Now you can go exploring and go to the assignment page, and the assignment page is really nothing more than where I develop your assignments and then I upload to the module page. So you can see right here what the assignment page looks like, and it's not fully developed yet, but you can certainly go and explore these things if you want. There's nothing in the discussion, because there's no discussion to be had in the lab, but there is discussion in the lecture. The quizzes is where you will find like the activities, because it's set up under the quiz, even though it's an activity, because it's graded in a questionnaire type of fashion. Okay, you guys want to see your grade, how you're doing, you click on the grade book. Okay, and then you'll see exactly your status. A lot of these are unpublished because I haven't released it yet. So let me go back, because I really want to spend time in this module page. So we're going to go to the module page, and we don't have to worry about this. Hopefully you guys have read the course information, the syllabus, the forward, safety, lab policy, the equipment. Here is your lab manual. Click on this, and when you click on this, you will see this little link right here. If you click on that little icon, the preview document, then it'll show you the whole lab manual. You need to wait a little bit depending on your internet speed, because it is a large document, but nevertheless, this is your whole lab manual. Okay, so if you just scroll through, or if you know what page to go to, like page, let's go to page 14. Okay, then this is page 14. It's talking to you about the penny experiment. Okay, so this is where you find your lab manual, and you can download it or you can read it on the screen. Let's go back to the module page. So it's right here at the very top. In order for me to navigate more easily, I'm going to collapse these by clicking on these triangle. They're also called chevrons. This week, you guys should read the safety, but don't do the safety quiz until you are ready to take the photos. That's why I put here, due date September 6th. You can take a look at, these things are questionnaires. Okay, these things are questionnaires. So I give you right here, please read before trying to attempt this safety quiz. It's 50 points. Let's go back to the module. So I will remind you again, when you guys have picked up your chemicals and your equipment, that the safety quiz is due. This is 25 points, shows here. The other statement says 50 points, so I have to like check that out, okay? So I need to, there's some conflict between the summer and the fall term, and like I said, there was a glitch there. This is your first experiment, the penny lab. And if you click on the first part, that's just information. And if you click here, this is basically, again, pages from your lab manual. So I try and, you get the lab manual in different places. My website as the lab manual as a whole, but for each experiment, I have the pages that you guys are going to be completing within that particular module. So this is experiment number 1, okay? And you can see here, and what you need to do is read it and then prepare to fill it out. And then also, let me just show you, Within this information page, I actually give you the link to the YouTube that is pertinent to this particular experiment. So you don't have to go to the YouTube channel that I showed you on my webpage. It's actually here. So within each experiment, you have all the information that you need to complete it and be successful on it, okay? In the previous method, you use hydrochloric acid to look at the reaction of a penny with the acid. We're not issuing hydrochloric acid anymore. We're issuing acetic acid, which is a more safe acid. But if you don't want to do that procedure, then you could click on this video and watch exactly what happens. So in some situations, there's actually a video component, and if you take careful notes, then you don't even have to carry out that particular procedure. But that's only for a few minor parts of an experiment. Okay, so please keep that in mind. I'm going to go back to the module page because that's how experiment 1, the penny lab, is presented. Most experiment, after the first experiment, you will have it'll look like this. Okay, this is your measurement experiment. In this experiment right here, and this is probably the most important experiment through the semester because this is your student learning outcome experiment. Pay attention to it closely because your lab practical is based on this experiment. Yeah, okay? So please keep that in mind. Just make sure I'm okay. Okay. Just making sure that I didn't miss anything in the chat room. But please keep that in mind in terms of paying attention in this experiment, because if you don't know how to read your graduated cylinder based on the activities done in this experiment, you're not going to be successful in the lab practical. So let me show you what this experiment entails. Again, A is just the information. It provides all the background information that you guys will need, as well as the video, the pre-lab video for this particular experiment. Again, this experiment is what we do at Miramar College. You can take a preview of this right here. And what I generally have is not only my PowerPoint, but also the experiment. So I think this one right here is the PowerPoint slide that I usually present when I'm talking about this experiment at Miramar College. And it looks like it's having a long time to download. So you have to be patient. But since you guys are in hopefully no time constraint, yeah, this is a PowerPoint. Okay, tells you about the objective of this lab and then how to carry out measurements. It talks to you about precision and the uncertainty. So this is my PowerPoint slide for this experiment. I'm going to minimize this. And then this right here is the lecture I gave talking about how to use measuring device. I'm going to stop. You guys can watch that on your own. And this right here is the experiment itself. Okay, but this is just the information page. This is just the information page. Let me go back to the module. And then the second part right here is your pre-lab. So click on this. And in this pre-lab, what you will see is the questions. Now, some pre-labs is actually a questionnaire. Some pre-labs, there's a link where you can actually submit it. So in this particular case, you want to complete this, you want to download, and this is just the pre-lab page for this experiment. Complete it. And then once you complete it, then you take a picture of it and then you submit it at the very top. You guys will see that link. As a instructor view, you don't see it up here, but as a student view, you will see. Let me just do that student view real quick so you guys can see. So I'm going to do a student view. We're going to go to that first module because I want you guys to see the link where you upload that particular page. So here we are. We're looking at, oops, I forgot. It wasn't released because it wasn't green. But if you go to, let's find that here. You'll see at the very top, submit assignment. So just do that on your own when you, as a student view, because I should have released it. Forgot about that. Go hit the module. And see how these things are not green? Well, that's the reason why you didn't see it in the student view. But this is the pre-lab. This is your data sheet. Click here to submit your data sheet. You have to submit it in different sections. You can't submit everything all at once. You do it in different sections. That way I can give you specific grades for each section, okay? And it tells you how many points each one of these are right here. This is 25 points. If you go back, you'll see that the pre-lab for this particular experiment, let's go back to the pre-lab for this particular experiment. It's got to be in the module. Is worth 10 points right here, 10 points, okay? Tells you the due date and when you should submit it and the availability, okay? If you're late, then you can submit it up to September 14th, but try not to be late because you will be deducted 20%. The due date for this is September 13, 11:59. That's a Sunday. So again, almost all experiments, except for the first one, you have 4 sections. You want to submit each one in its section, the pre-lab, the data sheet, and then the post-lab. In the data sheet, I need to elaborate on that. When you guys submit your work in the data sheet, you've got to make sure that you submit, let me do a preview, not only the data sheet, but also your photos, because within each experiment, you will be asked to take a photo of certain portions of the experiment. You have to submit your photos and your data sheet. And if you are trying to get extra credit for your lab manual, you also need to submit it within the data sheet. That way, when I'm grading these things, it's all in one place. I don't have to hunt it down. Okay, so the data sheet is where you guys are going to be submitting not only the results of your experiment, but also the photos of your experiment, as well as the notes, your lab notebook pages for that experiment. So this is experiment number 3, and again, that's what you guys are filling out. So the rest of this, the experiment, let me do a separation of ternary mixture, just to walk you through that. The objective, the material, this is what it looks like, okay? The background information, that's what each experiment will contain. It'll give you a procedure. It'll give you some safety information. And then where you see these things highlighted in green, that's where you want to pause and take a photo. Okay, so for this experiment, you take a photo at this point. You do the experiment, you take a photo again at this point. Everyone has a camera phone these days, so that shouldn't be a problem. You have 4 photos, and then basically fill out the data sheet based on the data that you've gathered, okay? And then answer the post-lab questions, and then this is a summary of the photos that you would have submitted with your data sheet. So that basically is your how you would carry out the experiments in this class. Let me just summarize, going a little bit over, but I should be done within the next 5 minutes. Let me just summarize what we talked about today. We talked about the course syllabus, and in the course syllabus, I went down on how you guys are going to be evaluated. You guys are going to be evaluated based on the quizzes, midterms, and lab practical. The quizzes will be your safety quiz and your syllabus quiz, your midterm and your final. That adds up to about 275 points. The bulk of your grade is going to be found in the experiment and the exercises. Each experiment will require you to get out the chemicals that you need for that experiment, as well as the equipment to carry out that experiment. As you read the experiment and the procedure and you start carrying it out, make sure you have your safety supplies with you. Make sure you have your gloves. Make sure you know where your first aid kit is. Make sure you have, especially if you're working with flames, your fire extinguisher. Okay? Don't have kids nearby, even if it looks like a fun experiment. Okay, make sure you are not working alone. Have another adult present or some other person, a roommate present, because these experiments are pretty safe, but you never know what can go wrong. Okay, so it's always important to have someone else nearby. When you do carry out your experiment, follow the directions, use the quantity that is being asked, pay attention to safety. Make sure that any chemical waste that you put in a water bottle, even if it's just water that has some Kool-Aid in it or something. Nothing goes down your sink. It all goes into that water bottle that you are keeping. Keep it sealed and label it correctly. Okay. When you're carrying out your experiment, make sure that you take photos where the procedure says to take photos. One of those photos should actually have you in the background with whatever is being taken a picture of. I want to make sure that you are doing the experiment. Don't copy a classmate. Complete the data sheet and then use the data that you got from that experiment to do the calculations for that lab. Follow the directions. If it says to label the graph, label the graph. If it asks you to put a heading, put a heading. Don't assume that I know. In fact, that's what you guys are graded on, is following the directions of each experiment. If you take shortcut or if you ignore it, you're going to get points deducted. Okay? Wherever Canvas shows, you want to submit those portions. If Canvas shows you there's a pre-lab section, complete that pre-lab question, whether it's a worksheet, the lab notebook pages or the lab manual pages, or maybe Canvas will present it in a questionnaire and you have to fill in the blank or do the calculation. Okay? Complete it in that section. And then for the data and observations, there's going to be a different section. You have to go to that section in Canvas to complete it there, because that's where I will find that work and give you a grade for that particular section. Altogether, the pre-lab, the data, your photos, and the post-lab will add up to 50 points. But each one will vary from one experiment to another. One experiment might have the data and observation worth 20 points. Another experiment might have it worth 30 points. That's why I need you to separate these things when you turn it in. Like I said, the bulk of your experiments is going to be found in your exercises as well as your experiment. Please always keep safety in mind when you do these things. If you have questions, email me, or we'll have a video Zoom chat so that I can clarify things. Don't cheat and copy someone else's work. If I find that out, you get automatic 0. I'll call you out on it. Okay? I've had that experience over the summer. It's not a pleasant experience. If you do all the experiments correctly, then in the midterm, you guys have a question, a midterm that based on the experiments that you just completed. Okay? And you have your lab practical. Your final is cumulative with an emphasis on the second half. And you also have a lab practical, which is really a repeat of the lab practical in your midterm. We want to make sure that you guys really understand how to take measurements correctly. At the end of the semester, you should make sure that you have all your chemical waste in store, and then you should also have your equipment ready to return. So this right here is what you guys will be receiving from Miramar College. In here, you guys will have supplies, chemicals that you will need. They're right here. Oops, sorry, my ghost background is not showing. But this is it right here. You have the chemicals that you will need, and they should be properly labeled. In here as well, you will have your scale. The way you use your scale is you need to make sure that the battery is working. If the battery is not working, you need to replace the battery, because then it'll give you a false reading. I apologize for this right here. It's turning out to be a ghost because of my virtual background. And then when in the scale, there's something called a tare. A tare is a way to zero the balance, so that if you put a weighing boat or a piece of paper to protect the surface, and you press there, it makes sure that the reading is zero. It doesn't weigh that item that you have. So taring is just to zero the balance with the paper or the weighing boat on top. And then when you put your item on the weighing boat, the reading that you get is the true mass of that item. It's not the true mass, it's not the mass plus the weighing boat. It's just that, but you have to tare it. T-A-R-E. Not T-E-A-R, tare, T-A-R-E is the term. The other thing that you need to know, and this is very important, there's a mode in your scale. Make sure the mode is in grams. It also measures things in ounces, as well as some other jewelry unit. It has to be grams. We are in a science class, and we are measuring everything based on the metric system. If you don't take care of that, all your measurements will be off and all your values will be messed up. So that's what you guys will be receiving from Miramar College. The scale, a watch glass, and then that's all you really need. The rest will be found from KLM Bioscientific. Okay,